If you've always wondered how to print a digital PDF sewing pattern at home, I'm going to walk you through it today. Hey guys, I'm Tammy and welcome back to my channel. I know when you're first starting sewing, it can be really confusing understanding how to use PDF sewing patterns. So don't worry if you've never tried it before. I'm going to take it nice and slow and show you my exact method that I like to use to print out my sewing pattern and then assemble it together. You can use this method to print any PDF sewing pattern, but for this video, I'm going to be using one from my own website. I have a range of beginner-friendly patterns and I'm going to use that as an example in this video. So in case you don't know, once you buy a PDF sewing pattern, you're generally met with a few different files. My patterns come with a PDF instruction file, a A4 and US letter file, an A0 file, and also a projector file. But generally, if you want to print your sewing patterns at home, you'll have to open the A4 or US letter paper document. And then if you want to print large scale on big sheets of paper, that's when you'll take the A0 file and take that to a printing shop. So not that long ago, I got a projector and now I also produce projector files. So if you have a projector, you can literally project the pattern directly onto your fabric and you might find those files with sewing patterns that you purchase. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I always find people do is when you purchase your sewing pattern, you have to download it to your laptop or desktop. You don't want to print within a browser like Google Chrome, Safari, or Firefox. You want to print it when it's downloaded to your device. So let me take you over to my laptop and show you exactly how to print a sewing pattern from start to finish. So I've got my laptop open and I've just double clicked the pattern and it's opened it in Adobe Acrobat, which is this software right here. If you don't know what Adobe Acrobat is, it's just basically a tool that you can use to print out your pattern. Now I opened the A4/US letter document. You can use any one that you have. Just make sure if you're printing at home, you are selecting this one and not the A0 file. Now when you open up the document, you can see if I scroll along, there's lots of different pages and basically we're going to print them all out and stick them together. There's a few things we have to make sure we get right before we print the pattern out. So if I scroll all the way to the top, my patterns actually come with layers. So there's a button on the side of here, which is this one right here. It looks like two diamonds on top of each other. And when I press that button, this whole panel over here is opened up and it's actually showed us the layers that are within this document. Now, not every sewing pattern has layers, mine all do, but what it allows you to do is actually select the size you want to print out. So if I just take some off, hopefully you can start to see over here that the sewing pattern is actually just only showing a certain layer. So on this file, it goes to 6 to 18. I also give you another file, which is 20 to 32. So if I only wanted to print the size 8, I would deselect everything and just keep the size 8 layer on. Now, you also want to make sure you always keep on the layers that say all sizes information or information in general, and also to make sure you always keep on the page numbers. You're only ever turning off the sizes. If your pattern doesn't have layers, don't worry, you can just go ahead and print out the pattern as I'm going to show you. Now, the first thing you want to do is go to File and press Print. And as you do that, a printed box should appear that shows you exactly how it's going to print on paper. Now, there's a few key things you have to make sure you do. And the first thing is to print out the first page, which is where the test square is. So if I move this over, you can see there's a box right here, and that's what's known as a test square. And you generally always want to print this page out first on its own, just to make sure that the square is to scale, and then we're going to print out the rest of our pattern. So the first thing you want to do is make sure the scale is set to 100%, and you can see here that that's now set to 100% in this box. You can also do actual size. Both of those will mean the same thing. And then you can see here that the pattern is actually, for some reason, too far to the left and the top. We want to make sure the pattern is centered in the middle of the page. Now you can go ahead and play with some settings. Sometimes pressing the orientation to auto will automatically make sure the pattern is in the middle of the page. And then we want to go ahead to pages and only print the first page. So I've only put the number 1 in this pages section because I just want to test print the first page. And as I've done that, you can see it's also changed down here, page 1 of 1, which just verifies we're only printing one page. And then I'm going to press print. So here you can see I've printed out the first page only, and this is what it looks like. You can see it's printed in the center of the pages. And my patterns, for example, have this dotted line all the way around the entire edge of the document. And because I can see all 4 lines, we know that's definitely printed correctly. Now I'm going to take a ruler and just measure this test square up here. So it tells me that this measures 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I need to get my ruler and put it against the box and make sure it measures exactly that. So we can see here, it does measure 2 inches exactly. Just a caveat, sometimes when you are printing a pattern, it may be 1 or 2 millimeters off. If that is the case, sometimes that really is an issue you can't resolve. As long as it's less than 1 or 2 millimeters off, it's printed completely fine. If it's anything more than 1 or 2 millimeters, then you definitely need to recheck your settings. But you can see here it has printed exactly 2 inches. So now that I know it has printed correctly, I can go ahead and print out the rest of the pages. Again, you always want to make sure that the scale is set to 100% and that it's orientated so it's in the middle of the page and not too far to the top or the left corner. So you would go ahead and just press print all the pages that you want. So I've gone ahead and printed out the rest of the pattern right here, and I've got 15 pages that I'm going to show you exactly how to stick it together correctly. Now I printed all the layers out on one file just to show you what it would look like when we go ahead and cut out our size. But again, if you only selected your size, you'll only see the lines for your size and not the rest of the sizes when you've printed it out. Now you're going to want to have a pair of scissors that we're going to use to trim the pages and stick the pattern together. The pair that I like to use is this one right here by I'll leave a link down below because I really like these. But in general, you just need a pair of all-purpose scissors that aren't dressmaking scissors. They don't need to be fancy because they're only going to be cutting out paper. And then on top of that, you're going to want some sellotape to stick the pages together. You definitely can use a glue stick instead. I personally just like having a sellotape on a roll like this, and then I can easily tear it off when I'm sticking everything together. But let me take you over and show you how we're going to stick the pages together. Now I've got my laptop in front of me for a second, and I wanted to show you something that comes with some sewing patterns. My patterns include this page in the instructions file, and it shows you exactly how we're going to stick the pages together. So you can see here on sizes 6 to 18, it's 4 pages across, and then it's 4 pages down, and it shows us exactly the layout we need to follow to stick the pages together in the correct order. Not all sewing patterns will have this, but definitely check if it does have it because it can help you understand how to actually lay the pages out correctly. So I've got my pages right here, and we know it was 4 across, but in general we always get the first page, and we know it's the first page because in this corner right here it says page 1. Sometimes it might also say that in the middle of the page as well. I'm going to put it down to the side of me, and then we know from that layout we need to cut this line right here and stick it to this page, and we're going to continue on like that. So what I'll do is I'll get my scissors. I'm going to turn it around because I find it easier, but I know I'm going to cut the left line here. When I look at it like that, it's this line right here. So we've cut that left line right against that dotted line, and then we're going to align that on top like this. So my patterns have a diamond shape that you need to actually put together to make sure it's correct. So you can see here, now I've aligned that the diamonds are touching, and so is this dotted line right here, exactly like that. And once you've put that in place, I like to use some tape to just stick it down, and again at the bottom. And then personally, I like to get a big piece of tape and stick the entire raw edge down like that. So now you can see that page 1 is attached to page 2. We're going to repeat the exact same for page 3 and 4. So again, we're attaching page 3 right here to page 2. So we're always basically cutting the left edge off and sticking it to the rest of the pages. And then again, I'm aligning the diamonds and that dotted line. So I like to line the top one up first, stick that in place, and then swing the rest of the page down so that lines up. And then again, I'll stick some tape down there. Again, we're going to do the exact same for the page 4. So now we've got the 4 pages stuck together for the first column. What we're going to do now is bring that up to the table, and we're going to now stick together page 5 to page 1 because that's what it showed in that diagram that I showed you. And you can also see the line actually follows along when I put that down there, so we know it's going to go there. Now, because we're attaching the top of page 5 to the bottom of page 1, we only want to cut the top line here. And then in the same way, I'm literally going to align the notches, which are these diamonds, and that line correct. So you can see here that's all laying correctly. And then again, I just tape it in place. Now again, we have to go ahead and stick together page 6. You can see here that when I bring it over, we now have to cut the left line and the top line to stick it to the pattern. And now I'm going to go ahead and stick that down, and you can see we have to align the left line as well as the top line to make sure everything's lined correctly. So I like to go ahead and line up the top line first, like so, and then at the same time just double check this is roughly in place as well, which I just need to swing over slightly, and now that's all correct. Stick that down. And now we're just going to follow the rest of the pattern using the exact same step. Now, as you can see, I've stuck all the pages together. If I just turn it around like this, so now you can see when it's been stuck together, it creates a really big sheet, and now we have the full size pattern to scale. Now you can see there's lots of different sizes that's been printed on the pattern. Again, if you only printed one size, you can just follow the one that's marked really clearly. If you haven't printed one size and you have lots of sizes on one sheet, I'll show you exactly how to follow the lines. But as I zoom in right here, this is the front bodice. You can see there's different sizes that you can follow to cut out. Let's say we're following size 8, which is this clear, solid line. We would go ahead and go around the entire pattern and cut out that line only. If you're someone that finds it a bit hard to follow the lines really clearly when you're cutting out, you can also use a pen and actually mark the size that you're going to cut out. So here it says size 8 is the solid line in the key. I might go ahead and use a pen and literally trace around size 8 all along, so I know when I'm going to these areas that have quite a few lines, I know exactly which one to cut out. So you could do that all along the entire pattern, so it's really clear which one you want to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and follow the size 8 line and cut out my pattern. Now I've cut all my pattern pieces out, and this is the paper that's been left over that's just on the floor at the moment. You want to go ahead and check your instructions file that you're not missing any pattern pieces. So for example, I cut out this pattern piece right here, which is the neckband, but you can see it's quite a simple rectangle piece. You might end up missing small pattern pieces like this, so it's worth it to go ahead and just check the remaining paper and make sure you've not missed any pattern pieces that are easy to miss. So I have the final pattern cut out right here, so you can see I've got 4 pattern pieces, which is what it tells me in my instructions. I've got the front bodice, the back bodice, the sleeve, and also the neckband. So I now have cut out all the pattern pieces that I need to make this pattern, and everything is looking correct. I hope that's given you a really clear understanding of how to print out your first PDF sewing pattern. Honestly, it isn't as complicated as it looks, and once you do it a few times, you really get the hang of it. I did actually create a free checklist right here, and it's basically a little guide that you can use to make sure you're printing everything in the correct order and you're not missing any steps. There's actually little boxes you can use, and just use a pencil to tick it off to make sure you don't miss anything when you're printing out your pattern. So if you want this free checklist, click the link in the description box and I'll send it over. If you want to try some really fun beginner-friendly sewing patterns, definitely check the ones on my website down below. I'll leave a link to that and also a 10% off code if you're brand new. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.